This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Shifting a little money here, a little there, hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can be a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance. They'll help you find options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states. I think I've lost count of the number of times I've watched the surveillance video out of Somerville, Massachusetts. You know the one where Rümeysa Öztürk, the Turkish graduate student, is approached by ICE agents, all in black, and loaded into a car. But I called up Slate's Aymann Ismail because I wanted to know what this video looked like to him.
So somebody sent it to me and they were like, yo, have you seen this new video of someone getting snatched off the street? I felt maybe prepared for it from the onset, but nothing quite prepares you for what actually happens. You see the person, Rümeysa, walking down the street. She has a backpack. She looks like a student. She's wearing glasses and a pink headscarf. She looks like a lot of people that I was friends with in college myself, and she just looks like she's walking down the street doing nothing, minding her business.
One by one, the agents confront her.
Like when the first person makes their approach, you can almost sense that she wants to turn, jump into the street. That's before anything happens. It's insane.
Which is when Rümeysa starts screaming.
Everybody had their faces covered. They kind of briskly took Rümeysa away off the street, shoved her into a black SUV. Everybody drove off. Everybody walked away. It was as if they knew that there was nothing anybody could do.
What did you feel watching this?
So for listeners who don't know, I'm Muslim American. So I'm going to have a lot of strong feelings about this, right? Everybody who grew up post 9/11 in America knows somebody, if not themselves, who've been in a situation like this, or at least similar to this. When I was 12 years old, a little under a year after 9/11, 6 or 7 FBI agents came in through our front door around 4 a.m. And they just flipped the entire apartment upside down. And I'm not comparing myself to Rümeysa or anything. All I'm saying is that if you're Muslim in America after 9/11, everything in this video feels familiar.
Watching the response to Rümeysa's detention for Aymann, it's almost been a relief. So many people are asking, how could this happen here? It makes him feel like maybe, finally, the rest of America sees what he always has. Then again,
this does feel like another step. This does feel like the latest chapter in a long-standing history of the criminalization of being a Muslim activist here in America.
Today on the show, student detentions and deportations are echoing across the Muslim world. And people like Aymann, they've got some ideas about where the government is getting its target list. I'm Mary Harris. You're listening to What Next? Stick around. This episode is brought to you by Quince. Vacation season is nearly upon us. This year, it is time to treat yourself to the upgrades you deserve with Quince's high-quality travel essentials at fair prices. This spring, I am headed to Texas, where it's going to be way hotter than it is here in New York. Obviously, I needed some fresh clothes that would fit in a very tiny suitcase. Quince delivered. They sent me a wrap dress that has been following me all over the internet for the last year or so. It arrived super fast, it fit like a glove, and it's soon going to be getting some Rio Grande sunshine. You know what, though? If I'd needed a suitcase, Quince could have sent me that too. They have carry-on bags for adults, backpacks for kids, all at affordable prices for you. 50 to 80% less than similar brands. So head to Quince, where you can buy a new outfit for summer and a bag to pack it in when you head off to enjoy. For your next trip, treat yourself to the luxe upgrades you deserve from Quince. Go to quince.com/whatnext for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/whatnext to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/whatnext.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
I think the main thing that's confused some folks about this arrest in Somerville, Massachusetts, is the reasoning for it. Like, a spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security told NPR that Rumeysa Öztürk's student visa was revoked because she, quote unquote, engaged in activities in support of Hamas. And the only thing anyone seems to be able to dig up here is an op-ed she co-wrote in a student paper, the Tufts Daily. What did that op-ed say?
The op-ed was kind of tame compared to a lot of other op-eds that we've seen written about the conflict in student newspapers. The only case that it was making was about divesting student funds away from Israel's military specifically. And it seemed to have been kind of basic and really related to a lot of similar papers. And it was also well sourced, and there was a lot of links in the paper. Yeah, there was not a mention of Hamas, not a single mention about terrorism, not a single mention about supporting any kind of violence or resistance at all. It was just specifically about defunding her own tuition dollars away from a foreign policy that she disagreed with.
Yeah, it was directed towards the president of Tufts. And it even had this line that struck me that was like, well, there's room for disagreement here, but, you know, basically we want the president of Tufts to take our demands seriously, which is about divestment from Israel and businesses associated with Israel. I had the same impression as you did, which is like, this wasn't hair on fire kind of writing.
Right. The way it was described, you almost expected it to be like Hamas propaganda.
Right. Which it was not.
Which it was not.
Which led me to this question, which is, why was Rumeysa Öztürk targeted? Do we know?
No, they haven't really laid out a reason at all. I think the only thing that the United States government has said so far is that, well, she was in this country as a guest and she ought to have better manners. That's it. That's the whole principal argument that I've seen so far. Marco Rubio more or less suggested, hey, well, if you're going to come to this country, you should really be glad that you're here and keep your mouth shut. And that's pretty much it. That's the whole argument. It feels weak. These kinds of arguments for the extrajudicial detention of Muslims has always been weak. But, you know, I'm glad to see people finally catching on and saying things like, that's it? Like, what else is there?
Amid the many horrified reactions to the detention of Rumeysa Öztürk, one organization seemed happy to claim credit for bringing her to the federal government's attention. The Twitter account for a group calling itself Canary Mission posted a thread compiling multiple articles that said they were, quote, a source for Öztürk's arrest. Canary Mission has been around for at least a decade now. Prominent Muslims like Aymann know them well.
Yeah, even the name kind of invokes fear in me. I'm not going to lie.
Really?
Yeah, because they seem to have an outsized, like a tremendous amount of power to say who is and who isn't dangerous to this country right now. So I don't know, but like while we're going to have this conversation, I'm also going to be in the back of my head, like hoping that I also don't end up on this website.
Huh. What's their website like? Is it worth going there and just like checking it out together?
Absolutely. Everybody should immediately, if they can, go to canarymission.org and ask yourself why nothing on this website tells you who operates it. Nothing on this website tells you the name of the founder or where it's based or who funds it. It's just like this sort of shadowy, anonymous blog where they post links of pictures of students, specifically students, but also professors on college campuses who they have categorized very neatly into on their website as bigots who are motivated by a putrid hatred for other people that they can't stand. And in some cases, there's like this religious intolerance element. So I would go as far to say that there's like this Islamophobic element where they target Muslims, but also Arabs and try to paint them as infectious and anti-Semitic, and they hate Jews. But the issue here is that for the most part, most of these students that they are documenting and trying to expose for anti-Semitism have never said anything about Jews. And they are themselves activists who care a lot about Palestine and human rights. And in some cases, they are working in tandem with other Jewish organizations, and they are working with their universities. And, they're possibly raising money for, children who have been amputated by Israeli bombardments, things like this.
And we should just be explicit about this website because there's a drop-down menu. You can search for students. You can search for professors. You can look by region, state, university, organization. They have profile after profile that include pictures of people, that include details as fine as like, here's the class this person is teaching. They had that for Rumeysa Öztürk. Like here's what she's doing at Tufts. And they have boilerplate language in her profile saying, here's what we think, is wrong about speaking out about Israel. But they don't really point to anything she did in particular other than, a link to the Tufts Daily article that's kind of embedded in there. But they paint with a broad brush. Like, here's a picture of this person. Here's all the information you need to know about them. And here's why we think they're not great. And you could just flip through profile after profile.
Right. And one thing that's very striking about this page is that it looks well researched, right? They have screenshots. They have like as many hyperlinks as anything else. But I think they're hoping or banking on the idea that nobody actually clicks the links, because then they'll notice that a lot of these links are linking to the exact same page. So, for example, when they share that she is a supporter of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, that's the same article that they linked to when they said that she engaged in anti-Israel activism. It feels like they have this broad plan to characterize all anti-Israel sentiment as in support of Hamas or in relation to Hamas's broader plot to take over the world. And they have the power to influence the United States government as to who gets to stay and who gets to keep their visa and who doesn't. And that's what I think is what makes this dangerous.
Well, it's interesting because we don't really know how much influence this group has in the United States government. We're following breadcrumbs. We're seeing this person is detained. We're seeing, oh, they have this profile on this website. Oh, they're claiming credit. But it's hard to know what the connection is. And the thing is, like, they're not the only organization. There's also another organization called Batar, which is out there talking about students, professors at universities, right? What do we know about Batar?
We know that Batar is a lot more violent in their language and also in the things that they post about. So, for example, they will post video clips of people being caught on camera, vandalizing storefronts, throwing objects at protesters, engaging in actual real street violence, and they'll applaud it. And they'll say things like, we are not like your average Jews. We're not going to roll over and take it. We're actually going to fight back. And so they use this language, and it seems like they're happy to cheer it on when people are acting violent in the street. They've been linked to a few specific acts of vandalism in New York City. And the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, has also listed them as an extremist group. So I think that means something.
Yeah, but they haven't done that with the Canary mission.
No. So I think what makes the Canary mission specifically different is that it seems like they're not interested in fighting back in like a physical way. The Canary mission, I've come to understand it as like a McCarthyite style harassment campaign trying to chill the free speech.
It's a blacklist.
It's a blacklist. They're threatening people with keeping them on this list so that they can't get jobs in the future. It's an intimidation tactic. And the principle is to get people to stop talking about Palestine. What Betar seems to be doing that's different is that they're trying to use violence as a means of achieving the same thing. And I know that Betar has also gone online and taken credit for submitting deportation lists to the United States government. But again, we don't know to what degree the United States government is cooperating or ignoring. We just don't know.
Last week, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he was asked about how students like Romesa Osterk were being treated by the government. And I was kind of surprised, although maybe I shouldn't have been, by his response because, he revealed and confirmed that hundreds of students right now are being targeted by the administration. And, he was clear visas are a privilege, not something to be expected.
If you apply for a visa to enter the United States and be a student, and you tell us that the reason why you're coming to the United States is not just because you want to write op-eds, but because you want to participate in movements that are involved in doing things like vandalizing universities, harassing students, taking over buildings, creating a ruckus, we're not going to give you a visa.
When you heard about all of this, I'm just curious how it struck you.
It still feels like we're in this period where the United States government is making examples of people, doing these very large, arresting campaigns. I think what they're doing is similar to the way that they've been handling the deportations at the beginning of the administration, where they've been more or less trying to project onto their own supporters this idea that they're taking back control of the streets, that they are, doing promises made, promises kept. I don't know to what degree, like, every student will be policed or harassed or deported. That doesn't, to me, seem like it's the point. To me, that what happened to Romesa and what happened to Mahmoud Khalil was designed to scare everybody into being silent about their positions on Palestine. And I feel like it's working, right? I've talked to many students since Khalil has been arrested by ICE agents, and even since Romesa was arrested. And a lot of people are really freaked out. And there's this fear that I keep hearing about that they might be next, that they might be the next person to get snatched up on. People are writing down the numbers of lawyers on their hands so that they know what to do if they were to get arrested in the middle of the night. And I think that's the point. Trump came in and promised that he was going to get rid of the protests. And it doesn't seem like a big assumption to make that this is how he intends on doing it.
We'll be right back after a quick break. This episode is brought to you by Discover. It's smart to always have a few financial goals. And here's a really smart one you can set: earning cash back on what you buy every day. With Discover, you can. Get this. Discover automatically matches all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Seriously. All of it. Discover trusts you to make smart decisions. After all, you listen to this podcast. See terms at discover.com/creditcard.
Missions to Mars, driverless cars, AI chatbots. Feels like we're already living in the future. Well, Robinhood is built for the future of trading. Robinhood's intuitive design makes trading seamless. On Robinhood, traders have access to popular stocks and ETFs 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, so you can keep up with today's fast-paced markets. Spot opportunities and take control of your trades with tools like screeners, simulated returns, and strategy builder. You can now even trade your favorite assets all in one place. Robinhood offers competitive pricing with commission-free trades on stock and ETF options and some of the lowest margin rates among leading brokerages. The future of trading is fast, powerful, and precise. Experience it now on Robinhood. Sign up today. Investing is risky. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. Trading during extended hours involves additional risks. Other fees may apply.
This episode is brought to you by Saks Fifth Avenue. Shopping at Saks is a great way to discover the best new styles and elevate your everyday look, especially when you're short on time. The great thing about Saks.com is that it is always open 24 hours a day, which means you can browse from the comfort of your own home. Saks makes it really easy to find your favorite brands, and they offer amazing style inspiration. I'm not exaggerating when I say my jaw dropped at the shearling leather biker jacket I found, and that's not even mentioning the Alice and Olivia sequined mini dress I had my eye on. Whether you're refreshing your entire wardrobe or shopping for a vacation, Saks makes it fun and easy. So if you're looking for a fun, effortless shopping experience and you want to elevate your personal style, head on over to Saks. That's Saks.com for everyday inspiration. One thing that struck me as a growing number of international students are encountering visa trouble with the Trump administration is the response from universities, or the lack of one. I also haven't clocked the massive wave of protests like those that sprung up against the Muslim ban during Trump's first term. But Aymann says he sees pushback building. Last week, he went to the New Jersey courthouse where Mahmoud Khalil's lawyers had an initial court hearing. Khalil is the green card holder and former Columbia student who was detained by ICE last month for his pro-Palestinian activism. Aymann said there was a crowd out front.
There were about, I would say, 150 protesters outside the courtroom, making noise, chanting "Free Mahmoud now." It was kind of incredible, particularly for how few people had their faces covered. And to do so in front of a courtroom where they were going after students who were expressing pro-Palestine sentiment. And that to me felt brave. And so I will say that, yeah, there hasn't been like this big rush, this mad dash to the airports, but protesters are still out there. I was sort of surprised to see them there, but they were there.
You know what I can't stop thinking about? The fact that these groups like Canary Mission, they aren't just targeting international students. Like if you go look at their website, the profiles they've posted of student activists, there are all kinds of people there, all kinds of backgrounds, and they have all kinds of information about them. So I wonder what the wider implication is of these international students being targeted. Because if they can be detained, what about these other people, American student protesters?
It happens, Mary. It happens all the time. I myself have been arrested by the NYPD. And when I finally got to see a judge after a couple of days, he threatened to deport me, even though I was born in this country. It happened to me. It's something that I think a lot of Americans in the periphery might be aware of. The fact that certain people in this country have rights until for a moment they don't. But I think this is the reason why a lot of Muslims that I know and why I myself saw the video of Rumeysa and felt attached to it and felt like that could have been them very easily, because it very may well have been. You know what I'm saying? When I got arrested, there was this special plainclothes like detective who met with me in the jail cell.
What were you arrested for?
Trespassing. It was a misdemeanor, the kind of thing that you might get a ticket for, and you just show up to court and pay the ticket. But in my case, I was detained for 3 days, and on the third day, after being offered nothing but ham and cheese sandwiches, so I didn't eat anything. But on the third day, this detective came into the jail and she asked me what mosque I prayed at. And then she asked me about my parents and like what part of Egypt my parents were from, and if I had any affiliation with the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. And then they asked me if I was comfortable calling them in the event that I overheard some conversations about an imminent terrorist attack in New York City. And Mary, the look I gave her of confusion, but also like, what are you talking about? It was almost like an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm just a kid with a camera who got arrested for trespassing because I wanted to take a picture from somewhere that I, could have gotten permission for, but I just wanted to go take the picture. What are we talking about? Why are we talking about terrorism? And when I got to see the judge, like, how much did he read into my case before he decided that I was going to be eligible for deportation, even though I was born less than 2 miles from the courthouse? Right? This is the facade of freedom that we have in this country. You're free until somebody decides that you're not. And in that moment, luckily I had somebody outside who was able to pay my bail. I got $3,000 bail, which even the lawyer I had at the time was like, this is unheard of for a trespassing case. This is insane. But I was able to get out. Otherwise, I would have spent God knows how long in Rikers Island waiting to eventually get my day in court. So this is the lived reality. I can't tell you how many people I know who've had similar experiences, in some cases worse experiences, where they did go to jail for a long time and their lives were ruined based on just the suspicion that because they were Muslim, they might be privy to a terrorist attack.
I'm kind of curious. The effort now seems to be preventing the government from forcing people like Romesa Ozturk out of the country. Do you think we're going to see her walking out of detention here in the U.S., given all of the attention that's now focused on her case?
Well, I'm famously great at predicting the future, Mary. So let me just tell you what's going to happen. No, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, the thing is, even if she were to be released tomorrow, the punishment has already been done, right? The detention is the punishment. This is the level of justice in this country, right? There's due process, yes. But if you are suspected for any reason, even if it has to do with your race or your ethnicity, you're going to go to jail and you're going to spend time in jail. And those days are going to live with you forever. It might characterize how you see yourself for the rest of your life. So at this point, best case scenario is that she lives with the trauma of having experienced being snatched off the street by plainclothes police officers wearing masks. And I'm not sure it's going to happen anytime soon. When I was at the hearing for Mahmoud Khalil, the judge made it very clear that there was going to be no discussion about the specifics of the case. There wasn't even going to be the question asked about what Mahmoud Khalil was accused of. We weren't even there yet, Mary. The question was specifically about the court's jurisdiction, just trying to figure out who was who in the case. And that's it. And that took weeks to schedule. So it might very well be a year, potentially longer, before any of the due process actually plays out. And by that point, it's safe to assume that these people will be forever changed by their experience in detention. And that's if they're innocent, which, so far, if you can't accuse anybody of a crime, I think it's safe to say that they are. But, that's just me. That might be my bias.
Aymann, I'm so grateful to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mary. And Eid Mubarak.
Aymann Ismail is a staff writer at Slate. And that is our show. What Next is produced by Paige Osburn, Elena Schwartz, Rob Gunther, Anna Phillips, Ethan Oberman, and Madeline Ducharme. Ben Richmond is the Senior Director of Podcast Operations here at Slate. And I'm Mary Harris. Go track me down on Blue Sky. Say, hey, I'm at Mary Harris. Thanks for listening. Catch you back here next time.